Do you know anybody whose family property is going up for a tax deed sale? That property might even be the property of a deceased loved one. If you know anyone in this situation or if you are facing this, I'm attorney Vernita Williams and I would like to share some information with you. Tax deed sales are very, very common. It is not uncommon to find that someone passed away, and after years and years and years, the taxes on the property just get neglected. People move away, they're not living in the house anymore, and they may be thinking that maybe somebody who's still in town or somebody who's living in the property, they think maybe they are taking care of that. So a lot of times when you see these tax deed sale problems, it is associated with the fact that the original owner passed away and now for years no one has paid the taxes. So usually the person who's living in the property, who might be a relative, they will start getting notices from the tax deed sale office. And then sometimes if you are a family member and even a part owner of the property, you may not get a notice because they don't know you are an heir owner. They don't know you're related to the original owner and they don't have any contact information for you. So you might be a family member who's just finding out that Bobo and Ray Ray, who's living in the house, didn't tell anybody about the tax deed sale that's coming up in 2 weeks. So what do you do? What are you going to do if your family property is going up for a tax deed sale and it is your grandmother's property, your parents' property, your aunt, your uncle, and you're just finding out about it? There are 4 things you can do. Number 1, you can pay the taxes and stop the tax deed sale. Well, that's easier said than done because if it was that easy, the situation wouldn't be as it is. So paying the taxes to stop the tax deed sale may not be an option. You might be a relative who can pay the taxes, but you may be thinking, okay, if I jump out here and pay this, I'm just paying for the people who are living there who perhaps should have been more responsible and took care of the taxes. Or I'm just paying and I'm not the only owner, so why should I be paying for all of these other folk who are not going to help me pay the taxes? So now option number 1, you can pay the taxes to stop the sale. That might not be a viable option. That might not be the one that's really going to happen. So option number 2, you can decide to sell the property and hopefully get a reasonable rate for when you sell it. Now, option number 2, selling the property and trying to get a reasonable price, could be very, very difficult because once your property goes up for a tax deed sale, the real estate investors know it and they are swarming around. They're looking around for family members and they're trying to get that property for pennies on the dollar. And they are even telling you, you might as well sell it to me for $50,000 because if it goes up for tax deed sale, you're not going to get anything. I know it's worth $250, but I give you $50 right now and just take this because if you don't take this, you're not going to get anything. Well, that's not exactly true, okay? And I'll discuss that a little bit more in a few minutes. So option number 2 is to sell the property to somebody and hopefully get a reasonable price. That's going to be really hard because they know you're desperate. They know the tax deed sale is coming and they're going to try to pressure you to sell it for a little itty bitty amount of money. Option number 3, you can allow the tax deed sale to happen. And then you, if you are part owner of property that belong to a deceased relative, you can then, after the tax deed sale, seek your overage money. Now, many times, people who are owners of property, who that once belonged to a deceased relative, they are told if it goes to tax deed sale, you're not going to get anything. Well, that's not true. Here's how this works. If the property is up for tax deed sale due to non-payment of taxes, let's say the taxes owed equal $15,000. If that property is sold for $215,000, then the overage amount of money that goes to the family is $200,000. So there is often money sitting there in the tax collector's account that belongs to the family, because the tax collector is only going to take the amount of money that's due in taxes. And when a property is sold in a tax deed sale, it is often that the real estate investors will bid on that property, and they will go higher and higher and higher trying to get that property. So it is very often that at the end of a tax deed sale, there's money left for the family. So family, there's probably going to be some money left for you at the end of a tax deed sale. But if the original relative that owned it is deceased, you're going to have to go to probate to get it. So here's something that you need to be very cautious about. There are going to be people coming around saying, I can help you get the overage money. I can help you get it. And if you sign things with them, you're probably going to be signing to pay them too much money to get the overage money. For instance, if you made $100,000 in the tax deed sale as a family, they're going to tell you, well, I want $30,000 or $40,000. Well, that's probably too much for that. But anyway, be very cautious about that. The fourth thing you can consider is this. You can stop the tax deed sale through legal proceedings, and that will give you the opportunity to either get the money to pay the taxes or to find a buyer who's going to pay the right amount. Remember now, if you're just finding out about a tax deed sale that's going to happen in 2 to 4 weeks, you don't have that much time to find a reasonable buyer who wants to pay a reasonable price. And if you got that tax deed sale date staring at you and it's right around the corner, you don't have that much time. But here in South Florida, there is a way that you can go through the probate court if the original owner has passed away, and you can stop the tax deed sale. This gives you time to either get up the money to pay the taxes and keep the property in the family, or to sell the property at a reasonable rate so that you're not feeling like you're pressured to sell the property for $50,000 when you know it's worth $250,000. So there are 4 options. Number 1, you can pay the taxes and stop the tax deed sale. That may be difficult to do because by the time it's up for tax deed sale, the tax amount is normally pretty high. Number 2, you can sell the property before the tax deed sale and hopefully get a reasonable rate. But the ability to get a reasonable rate becomes more and more difficult the closer you get to that tax deed sale date. Number 3, you can allow the property to be sold in a tax deed sale, and you can seek the overage money. Don't fall for this thing of, oh, if you don't do something now, you're going to get nothing. You probably are going to get some money after the tax deed sale. You've just got to understand that there's some money there for you. Number 4, you can stop the tax deed sale through legal proceedings so that you will have time to either get the money to pay the taxes or either sell it for the right amount, which would be the market value. I'm attorney Vernita Williams. If you'd like to discuss strategies for dealing with heir property and tax deed sales, please call me 786-831-9483.